What I want to walk you through today is not a fringe theory. It's a constitutional argument, a historical precedent, and a hard look at where our debt-based money system has actually taken us. By the end, I think you'll see there's a real workable path to fix it, and some specific suggestions for getting this information in front of President Trump. Here are the topics we'll cover. We'll start with what the Constitution actually says about who gets to create money. Then Lincoln's greenback, a real precedent for debt-free currency. From there, fiat versus gold, the debt record and who's holding it, the debt ceiling, and why it keeps becoming a crisis, where you can watch Bill Still's full documentaries for free, the case for executive action, and finally, what I'm asking each of you to do. Let's start at the source. Where does the power to create money actually come from? Not from the Federal Reserve, not from private banks. It comes from Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and it belongs to Congress. Here's the actual text. Clause 2. Congress has the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States. Clause 5. Congress has the power to coin money and regulate its value. Notice the word coin, not borrow from a central bank at interest. The founders gave this power directly to the people's representatives. Monetary reform means Congress simply exercising a power it already has, the same power it used once before, under Lincoln. So when has Congress actually done this? Once, memorably, during the Civil War, with what became known as the greenback. This is Lincoln's own account of it, a letter to Colonel Dick Taylor, laying out how the greenback came to be. Listen to his own words. Issue Treasury notes bearing no interest, printed on the best banking paper. And in Lincoln's own phrase, this gave the people of this republic, quote, the greatest blessing they ever had, their own paper, to pay their own debts. The idea was Treasury notes, printed by the government, paying no interest to anyone, issued directly by the United States to pay its own debts. Here is what Colonel Taylor proposed. 1. Treasury notes with no interest, money created by the government, not borrowed from a bank. 2. Enough of it issued to cover the war effort and made full legal tender. 3. And this is Lincoln's own phrase, it gave the people of this republic the greatest blessing they ever had, their own paper to pay their own debts. That's the whole model in one sentence. Now, the obvious objection, what about gold? Shouldn't money be backed by something real? Let's look at that honestly. Here's the data. 154 currencies, and not one of them is on a redeemable gold standard. 0. 139 are pure fiat. 14 more are fiat pegged to something else. Even Zimbabwe's so-called gold currency isn't actually redeemable for gold. Every currency on Earth today runs exactly the way critics say ours shouldn't. And here's why simply going back to a strict gold standard isn't an easy fix. Global money supply is about $98.6 trillion. All the gold ever mined, at today's prices, is worth somewhere between $25 and $28 trillion. That's roughly a quarter. There isn't enough gold on Earth to back the money we already have, let alone everything built on top of it. And gold isn't some pure, manipulation-free alternative. Its price is set on the same kind of trading markets as anything else. A small number of central banks and large holders can move it. Governments have set official gold prices and restricted ownership before. 1933 to 34 is the clearest example. At the end of the day, gold just shifts the question of who controls the money. It doesn't answer it. And here is another point. If backing our currency with gold is a good idea for us, it's a good idea for every other country also. But what if a country has low or zero gold reserves? What will it do for money? The only logical answer is a fiat currency issued directly by the legal government, issued in sufficient quantity to support real economic activity, but restricted enough to maintain stable prices with little inflation or deflation. So if not gold, then what? Let's look at where the current system, pure debt-based fiat, has actually taken us. I've examined the debt added under every president, going back to Washington. This chart lists the 8 presidents who have added the most debt. President Trump's 2 terms combined, $11.6 trillion. That's more than any other president in history, including Obama's 8 years at $9.5 trillion and Biden's 4 years at $8.5 trillion. Say that number again, $11.6 trillion in 2 terms, while total U.S. debt just crossed $40 trillion this month. I'd argue that gives President Trump both the clearest possible view of the problem and the standing to be the one who finally fixes it. And it's not just how much debt, it's who holds it. Japan holds over $1.1 trillion of our debt. The United Kingdom, $940 billion. China, $633 billion. Altogether, foreign creditors hold about a quarter of our publicly held debt. Every dollar of interest we pay them is a dollar leaving our economy. All of that borrowing runs up against something specific, the debt ceiling. Let's talk about what that actually is and why it keeps becoming a crisis. It goes back to 1917, the Second Liberty Bond Act, which let Treasury manage its own borrowing instead of getting Congress's sign-off on every single bond. Since 1960, Congress has raised, extended, or suspended the debt ceiling roughly 80 times. Right now, the ceiling sits at $41.1 trillion, set by the One Big Beautiful Bill Act in July of 2025, a $5 trillion increase. Current debt is over $40 trillion against a $41.1 trillion ceiling, so we've got roughly $1.1 trillion of headroom left. The Bipartisan Policy Center's early estimate is that we'll hit that ceiling again sometime between this winter and next summer. That window will sharpen as the year goes on. Here's what's actually at stake if it isn't raised in time. Social Security payments, military and federal salaries, veterans benefits, payments to contractors. Moody's Analytics modeled a prolonged breach and found a 4% hit to GDP, 6 million jobs lost, unemployment over 7%, and $12 trillion in household wealth wiped out. This is exactly the kind of manufactured crisis a debt-free money system doesn't have to have. You can't default on money you create instead of borrow. Now, if any of this is new to you, I want to make sure you can go deeper on your own time, for free. I recommend everything Bill Still has built on this issue over the last 30-plus years. You can find all the information you need at the Still Report. Over 170,000 subscribers, 1,000-plus videos. The full documentaries, The Secret of Oz and the Money Masters, are posted in full, free to watch. It's youtube.com/@thestillreport. Please go watch, and please share that link. Every new viewer is one more person who understands this. So, given everything we've just covered, what can actually be done about it? I believe there's a real case for executive action. 4 points. 1. There's precedent. Kennedy's Executive Order 11110 in 1963 showed the executive branch can act on currency issuance. 2. The debt trajectory is urgent. We're past $40 trillion with $1.18 trillion in annual interest, and there isn't time to wait on a divided Congress. 3. An order doesn't have to rewrite law. It can direct Treasury and the Fed to study and propose debt-free issuance mechanisms, a first step toward what Congress would ultimately need to finish. 4. It actually matches this administration's own rhetoric on cutting waste and reducing foreign leverage. Here's a specific mechanism I want to put in front of you. Treasury issues debt-free U.S. notes, following the Lincoln model. We retire an equivalent number of Federal Reserve notes. We offer our trading partners, Japan, the UK, China, and others, face value redemption of their Treasury holdings in those notes. Any nation that declines and insists on interest-bearing dollars instead faces higher tariffs and tighter access to our market. We already have that trade leverage. This just turns it into debt leverage and starts cutting foreign-held, interest-bearing debt down without issuing a single new bond. So here's what I'm actually asking of you today. Two things. First, help me get this in front of more people. I don't know of anyone else making this specific case for monetary reform at this level of detail. Watch the documentaries. Share this deck with people you know. Bring it to your civic groups, your town halls, your local media contacts. That's how past reform movements actually grew. Second, and this is the more targeted ask, we believe the fastest path to real reform runs through people who already have President Trump's ear. If any of them hear this case and find it compelling, they're positioned to bring it directly to him. Four names: Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, Wayne Allen Root, and Dan Scavino. Here's how to reach each of them: through public official channels only. Navarro's on X at RealPNavarro and at peternavarro.com. Bannon's War Room takes contact through warroom.org/contact. Wayne Allen Root is on X at RealWayneRoot. Dan Scavino is on X at Scavino47 or through whitehouse.gov/contact. If you have any connection to these people or a way to reach them, I'm asking you to use it. To sum it up, three things, starting today. Watch The Money Masters and The Secret of Oz, two free outstanding documentaries by Bill Still. Share this deck and the Still Report channel with 5 people this week, and reach out to one of those 4 contacts respectfully through an official channel. Restoring the people's money is restoring the people's constitution. Thank you.